Hello guys, Forristicat here once more. Today I want to put my thoughts forward on the movie Cloud Atlas. So officially it came out in Australia a couple of days ago. I saw it a couple of weeks earlier with my family, given that the trailer was something which really did, perk my interest. Basically the trailer sort of gave an indication that, this is the sort of movie that I really wanted to see, and it seemed to represent the movie in such a way that, if the movie actually delivered everything the trailer represented, I knew that the movie would be a fantastic movie. And I would have to say that it comes very, very close to delivering what the trailer represents the movie as. Personally, I think the trailer represents the movie like as a perfect movie, and of course trailers are always going to show the best parts of movies and not the crappy parts. But nevertheless, either way, the trailer for Cloud Atlas, I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. I've mentioned in previous videos that I love movies that sort of show connections between people around the world. I like to think that, everyone around the world is connected in one way or another, without getting too spiritual. And this movie, given that, it spans across generations and different universes and time periods, I thought, wow, this is like touch the Sean Fox with Kiefer Sutherland on crack cocaine. So I thought, okay, whatever, let's at least watch it. Obviously, it was always going to be a movie that I was going to watch. So my first reaction is that this movie is a very, very, very good movie. I know it's weak to say so many times, however, that's the only way I can express it. This movie is definitely an above average movie. And on IMDb, like, the reviews are very polarizing. Like, the people are either loving it or really hating it. And I think it's these movies that take these risks that people are either going to love it or hate it that are good movies, in my opinion. But of course, like, all the 1-star reviews on IMDb.com, they're like, it's a mess, it's too pretentious or whatever, like it's trying too hard to be good, this, that, and the other. But I'm like, how can you not give this movie like a high score? Purely from I don't want to sort of focus on the editing perspectives or whatever, but I personally think this may be controversial. I think that if you don't like this movie, I think you're viewing this movie in the wrong way. I think you should go into this movie with an open mind, understanding what type of movie it is, understanding it's going to jump around a lot, and understand there's something like beyond the movie. The themes of reincarnation, of how our effect in this life is going to ripple into other people's lives in this life and the next. I think if you understand those themes, this movie becomes very close to pushing towards a masterpiece. Now my initial reaction on Facebook was, I remember posting a status update, Cloud Atlas equals masterpiece. Then I thought about it, and I thought, you know what, masterpiece is like a word that personally should be banned. I don't think anyone should ever say, this thing is a masterpiece. Why? Well, I'm really sort of losing hope that, there is going to be like a masterpiece coming out anytime soon. And maybe it's a little bit naive to think that there is going to be a masterpiece coming out. But nevertheless, there are movies which are definitely above average and are definitely, even when the Empire magazine calls movies classics, classic is still a little bit too high of a term to use, and masterpiece is just ridiculous. But this movie is definitely above average, and it's not only above average, it's above average. So if I was to give a score straight away, I would say 9 out of 10 at least. 9 out of 10 at least. So, okay, I'm being vague here. Let's actually talk about what the movie's about. So it's 6 interconnected storylines, jumping around on very purposeful scenes. So when one character says one line, or one character does something, or one character is in water, it'll directly jump to the next scene, or to another storyline. And that's done in a very intentional way, and obviously it's the way of the directors trying to connect these storylines and saying, notice how this is like this, here's how we're trying to bridge the gap. I think there were a lot of very powerful lines in this movie, and these are lines which were directly from the trailer. How they're saying, I think there's a better life beyond this life waiting for us. And like there's Tom Hanks saying, yesterday I would never have believed what I've done today. I'm like, these are really sort of in and of themselves, like these are epic lines, and I think that this movie did a really good job of implementing them at points in the movie. I thought that was really good. I think his Dr. Henry Goose character that he played, the one with the white coat and glasses, how he meets Hale Berry's character, and they're like looking at the sunset, and there's like, I just met you, so how can I be in love with you? That was very quickly ended, and I feel like that brushed that a little bit too fast. Of course, how Tom Hanks's character throws like a critic over the edge, and he sees Halle Berry's character, whoever that is, at the party or whatever, at the bar. That went by very quickly. There is obviously like a lot of things going on in this movie. I mean, it's like, obviously I need to watch it more than once to understand. This is like a movie I'm actually going to dedicate 2 or 3 viewings to actually fully understand, because there is a huge amount of effort put into this movie. My friend on the other hand watched this movie, and he goes, this is crap. I'm like, I can't empathize, I can't connect with the characters, I don't understand the characters. Why is there a gay character here? This is like The Matrix, but different, it's all convoluted and mixed up or whatever. But again, I think that's, like I said before, like you're coming at it from the wrong sort of angle. Like, I guess maybe this is how it is with all movies. Like, if you come in with a certain framework or perception of how a movie should be like, you're going to be wearing like a certain colored glasses of how you view the movie, and that can either skew your view of the quote-unquote true rating, but then again, what is a true rating, and what is sort of like the actual biased opinion of it because you thought it was going to be like a different type of movie. But personally, I think if you understand what this type of movie is, like it's meant to show like the connections between people, how one life affects another life, how we are sort of more connected than we are disconnected from each other. This movie is definitely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is pushing towards that masterpiece level. So, I do revoke that statement I made before on Facebook, that the movie is a masterpiece. It is not a masterpiece, and I'll explain why it's not a masterpiece in a little while. But it's definitely, god damn it, damn me if it's not if it didn't take a lot of steps towards that level. And there were masterpiece moments in the movie, perhaps, or as I call them, epic moments. However, as we know, for a movie to be a masterpiece as a whole, you have to have a whole string of them without any scene which is, for want of a better word, crap, to detract from that masterpiece status. And that's why it's called a masterpiece, because it's very hard to have a movie that's absolutely perfect in terms of storyline, characters, emotions. But yeah, I was riding the hype wave with this movie. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. It's definitely an amazing movie. However, it doesn't sort of make me jump up and down saying, yep, this is the masterpiece movie I wanted to hear about. So what exactly about this movie made me think, this movie is not a masterpiece? First of all, for a movie to be a masterpiece, and I think this is a very important point, so listen up, masterpiece movies should never, ever try to be a masterpiece movie. That is to say, it has to be realized and experienced, and it's like a very subtle thing. It's like, here it is, here's the movie, what do you think of it? And you realize yourself, oh wow, it is a masterpiece. And although I cannot remember specific scenes, however, I got a vibe that, this is sort of overall trying too hard to be that sort of epic movie, or masterpiece status movie. And I think a lot of it came down to the acting was really unbelievable, with some characters like the old guy with glasses, and Tom Hanks, especially with his emotion in his scenes. However, not to single out Halle Berry, but that's what I remember at the moment. There were a couple of scenes where her acting was a little bit off, and there was something about it which was jarring. That, and again, like some of these storylines which were cut a little too short, like the doctor guy with the white lab coat and the glasses, how he got he exploded in the plane. I thought that could have been explored a little further. But you know what? Overall, this and the ending, the ending was pretty good. Like the whole thing is like a story he's telling to his kids in and of itself, so it's like a story within a story within a story. However, I think that it could have been done a little bit better. I mean, their own language, that's also very good, but to me, when they were speaking their own language, I interpreted that as if they were like stuffing up their own lines. Now I know that they weren't stuffing up their own lines, but it was almost as if like they were intoxicated and they were like, it was like an outtake or something that they left in the movie. But then, on hindsight, I'm like, yeah, you know what, they actually were, like making up their own language. I mean, visually, like, this goes without saying. It's pointless me saying this. Visually, the movie is amazing. It definitely has like a lot of epic shots in there, like the guy on the church and smoking a cigarette and stuff like that. And that's another thing. I think, like, I'm just trying to find a way best to express like the way they tried to connect all these storylines. I think a couple of them was sort of like shown on screen like a little bit. It's like shoving like like a cannonball down your throat. Like especially these scenes, and I can understand totally why the book is always going to be better, because you can digest these things slowly, mouthful by mouthful, as opposed to boom, here's like all these connections in your face. And especially the scene where it was the futuristic was it Tokyo, Japan scene, and then she's watching a movie, and then the movie sort of like is of this guy from the 18th century or whatever, I think Hugo Weaving's character, and then like it pans back 1, 2, or 3 times or something like this, and the part where Tom Hanks sort of wakes up and it shows all these interconnected storylines. I can understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to show everything is connected. However, as much as I like them doing that and trying to do that, if at least on the first viewing, like I can't say I'm not going to understand this on subsequent viewings, but it felt like that maybe like they should have slowed down a little bit, even though the movie is very long. They filmed an unfilmable book or whatever. There wasn't sort of when they tried to do those particular scenes, like, and they try to show the connections, I'm like, I can't really see how these storylines are affecting each other. I understand how they are similar. I understand the running theme throughout them, but I didn't really feel the connection between like one character actually visually seeing another character from another storyline. Now that is something I'd really have loved to have seen, because then emotionally these characters are connected and they're aware of each other, as opposed to this movie. It was like just a series of semi-disjointed storylines which were similar but not really connected in the sense of the characters knew sort of, or they understand like, or are aware of the existence of these characters in one life or another life. I think that would have made the story excellent, and I guess they did try to do that a little bit, but I don't think it worked because they tried to do it too quickly. But nevertheless, of course, what they did pull off was the running theme of love, fear, revolution, revenge is like obviously like a huge, another sort of motivation, or like the underdog coming up on top or fighting the system. Those were themes which I really enjoyed sort of seeing bleed into the other storylines throughout this movie. So there's 6 storylines. I'm not even going to begin to describe them all. Hopefully like this review is not too bad. Like I'm really bad at sort of describing particular scenes, but yeah, if you've seen the movie, you know where I'm coming from. There's 6 interwoven storylines between I think the 17th or 18th century. Like a publisher dealing with these guys who want money. A revolution, which is happening in the future with these robots. Which admittedly, like, it was similar to the Matrix, especially when you see all their bodies sort of hanging up there. But you know what? Whatever, they can take inspiration from the Matrix. I don't care. The point is, this movie is a very good movie. Cloud Atlas, I would give it 9 out of 10. And now I'm sort of thinking, okay, should I have adjusted the score or whatever? But you know what? Given that I've given other movies like 7 or 8 out of 10, but this movie is definitely one of the best movies I've seen in quite a while. What can I say? Like, to show sort of all these storylines connecting, make interesting dialogue, it was like, affected my emotions quite a lot. The storylines, like I said, some of them could be connected a little bit better, and some of them, actually expressed more and like told more of the story of, as I mentioned, a couple of storylines there. Some of the characters, given my friend's sort of opinion, I guess some of them sort of could be developed more, but you're bouncing around so much that ultimately I was more focused on like the underlying themes and what these characters were going through, which I think, if you watch the movie and you didn't at least felt connected to something there, then I think you should rewatch this movie, because I think Cloud Atlas is definitely, it's like as close to a masterpiece movie that I've seen in quite a while, and I'm very glad to have seen it. So you've probably seen it. If not, see it. Cloud Atlas. Go in with the right mindset. Forristicat out.